Klepper's Corner, today in the news, July 21st, 2025. Hello, truth seekers, doom scrollers, and people who accidentally clicked this thinking it was a cat video. Welcome back to Klepper's Corner, where today's news is tomorrow's psychological trauma. I'm Jordan Klepper, and yes, the world is still on fire, both metaphorically and, thanks to climate change, literally. Today, we take a global joyride through diplomatic standoffs, political lawsuits, actual starvation, the rise and fall of nations, and the Trump administration, which is now less of a government and more of a daily improv show with felony flair. So buckle up, folks. Let's see what's burning on the global stovetop. Segment 1, Gaza, from war zone to wasteland. You know it's bad when a food line becomes more dangerous than Tinder in Alabama. Gaza has reached a new kind of horror show, mass starvation combined with targeted violence. On Sunday alone, Israeli forces reportedly killed 115 Palestinians, including 92 who were just trying to get some aid. That's not a war zone, that's a dystopian hellscape where waiting for food gets you sniped. The worst incident? The Zikum crossing. 79 people were killed waiting for 25 UN trucks. That's not an aid line, that's a death lottery. The UN says people were fired on by tanks, snipers, and machine gun fire. And somewhere, Netanyahu is probably saying, we were aiming for the hummus. The Pope, yes, the Pope, newly upgraded to Leo XIV, called it barbarity after Israel bombed Gaza's only Catholic church. If you pissed off a man whose entire job is forgiveness, you might want to reassess. 25 countries, including France, Canada, and Australia, condemned the violence. The U.S. and Germany didn't sign on, of course. America said, we condemn all violence when it's not from our allies and when the camera's not rolling. And in Britain, you can now be arrested for holding a sign that says, I support Palestine action. So apparently, free speech now comes with a footnote, unless it makes us uncomfortable or challenges Raytheon's bottom line. What we're witnessing is a dangerous cocktail of mass death, food insecurity, and PR spin, garnished with the olive of international hypocrisy. Gaza has hit a new level of desperation, and somehow the global response is still, let's issue a strongly worded statement and move on to brunch. Segment 2, Ukraine, bombs before brunch. Russia pulled out the fireworks this weekend, but not the celebratory kind. Just hours before a key NATO weapons meeting, they launched a major aerial assault on Kyiv. Missiles, drones, fires, because nothing says, let's negotiate, like setting a kindergarten on fire. Kyiv's Darnitsky district was lit up like Times Square in a Michael Bay movie. This was the first major strike since Trump's special envoy, Keith Kellogg, arrived. Yes, Trump sent a Kellogg. I guess Tony the Tiger wasn't available. Trump's new plan? European countries give Ukraine American weapons through NATO, like a geopolitical game of hot potato, where the potato explodes on impact. Also, he gave Russia a 50-day ceasefire deadline, because if there's one thing Vladimir Putin respects, it's ultimatums from a guy who once tried to buy Greenland. The strategy is clever. America avoids directly footing the bill, Europe does the heavy lifting, and Trump gets to say, look, I'm being tough, like economically tough. No actual warfare, please. It stains the carpets. Meanwhile, Ukraine is begging for more air defenses, and Russia is pumping out drones like they're on Amazon Prime. So while NATO debates logistics, Ukraine debates whether to sleep at a bunker or just not sleep at all. Oh, and Zelensky wants peace talks. Russia says they're open to peace as long as peace involves Ukraine giving up everything and calling Putin daddy. Segment 3, Congo, the quiet success story. Let's take a break from apocalyptic hellscapes and talk about something positive. No, not Taylor Swift's new album, I mean actual peace. The Democratic Republic of Congo signed a declaration with the M23 rebel group, and a final peace deal is expected by August 18th. This isn't your usual ceasefire that lasts a week and ends in explosions. No, this one was brokered by the U.S. and Qatar, two countries that rarely agree on anything besides, please don't bomb our gas pipelines. The deal follows a previous agreement with Rwanda, which allegedly backed M23. And by allegedly, I mean definitely, but let's not ruin the vibes. Now, this conflict has been brutal. Cities like Goma and Bukavu taken, thousands dead, hundreds of thousands displaced. But here we are with peace on the table. And honestly, this could be a blueprint for how international diplomacy can work, assuming there's less oil involved and more people actually paying attention. So congrats to Congo. For once, a peace agreement that didn't involve 300 PowerPoint slides, a summit in Switzerland, and a 10-year waiting list. Segment 4. Trump versus Murdoch, the $10 billion defamation tango. And now to America, where things are always weird, usually orange and occasionally litigious. Trump is suing Rupert Murdoch and News Corp for $10 billion. Yes, billion with a B. Why? Because of a Wall Street Journal story claiming Trump signed a letter in Jeffrey Epstein's birthday album back in 2003. Allegedly, the letter had Trump's signature and maybe a weird cartoon, which is a sentence I never thought I'd say outside of a Mad Lib from hell. Trump says the letter is fake and the story is malicious. J.D. Vance is chiming in too, calling it a smear campaign. Probably because he knows if Trump goes down, he's one tweet away from podcasting in a van behind a Cracker Barrel. But here's the thing. Suing a media mogul for defamation when you're the sitting president is kind of like suing a mirror because you don't like your reflection. It's a test of press freedom, the line between journalism and political vendetta, and let's be honest, how long we can keep pretending Epstein didn't keep receipts on half of the Western Hemisphere. Also, the DOJ said they're not releasing any more Epstein evidence. Translation, we found something, it's damning, and we're going to bury it next to Jimmy Hoffa and Area 51. Segment 5, gender-affirming care. Hospitals under pressure. Children's National Hospital in D.C. is ending all gender-affirming care for minors by August 30th. Why? Because the DOJ sent subpoenas to over 20 doctors and clinics. And nothing makes a children's hospital panic like federal agents with clipboards and a crusade. Attorney General Pamela Bondi called it medical mutilation, which is rich coming from a party that thinks insulin is a gateway drug to socialism. Trump's executive order, beautifully titled Protecting Children from Chemical and Surgical Mutilation, may sound like it's about meth labs, but it's really about banning health care for trans youth. And now hospitals are folding faster than a MAGA hat in a washing machine. Legal threats, funding cuts, restraining orders. It's a Kafka novel written by Tucker Carlson. Let's be honest, this isn't about safety. It's about scoring points with a base that thinks gender is determined by what color balloon pops at a baby shower. Meanwhile, actual doctors, people with degrees, not Twitter accounts, are saying, hey, this helps vulnerable kids. But who cares what they think when we've got morality police who never passed high school biology calling the shots? Segment 6, immigration, swaps, and detention theater. In an episode of Diplomatic Jeopardy, the U.S. and Venezuela did a prisoner swap. Over 250 Venezuelans released from El Salvador's mega prison in exchange for 10 Americans. That's one blockbuster trade and zero justice. Meanwhile, journalist Mario Guevara is still in jail in Georgia despite having all charges dropped. His crime? Covering a protest called No Kings. Irony, meet America. And at Chrome Immigration Jail in Florida, Human Rights Watch found abuses that would make Guantanamo blush. DHS Secretary Kristi Noem denies ICE is racially profiling Latinos. Her exact quote, "Don't you dare ever say that again," which is the kind of answer you give when the answer is obviously yes. And if all that wasn't enough, Guatemala's agreed to take deportees of other nationalities. So it's like a geopolitical game of not it, and Guatemala lost. America's immigration policy right now feels less like law enforcement and more like a really aggressive Yelp review of every non-white person at the border. Segment 7, Trump's cultural throwbacks and flooded futures. Trump, never one to let the past stay buried, is demanding that the Washington Commanders and Cleveland Guardians go back to being the Redskins and Indians. Because if there's one thing Trump loves more than lawsuits, it's deeply problematic branding. Meanwhile, real problems like flooding are washing away the country. From Montana to the Carolinas, whole towns are submerged, and still somehow the real emergency is whether a football team has too few feathers on the helmet. Also, Harvard's being sued for $2.6 billion by the Trump administration because you can't call yourself elite and expect to survive in Trump's America. This is like suing a dictionary for using big words. And at a cybersecurity conference at Fordham, experts warn that we're not covering digital threats enough in the media. They say cyber threats are invisible, silent, and systemic, kind of like Congress, but with better encryption. Segment 8, Japan's rice and right-wing populism. Let's pop over to Japan, where Prime Minister Ishiba's coalition just lost its upper house majority for the first time since 1955. Why? Because rice got expensive. Seriously, nothing will take down a government faster than when the sushi gets pricier. Ishiba plans to stay in power, but with populists like Sanseito rising, that might be harder than finding a Nintendo Wii in 2006. The Sanseito party is anti-immigrant, anti-globalism, and well, mostly just angry. Think of it as the Japanese version of the Freedom Caucus, but with fewer cowboy hats and more passive-aggressive bowing. This could complicate trade deals with the U.S., especially since Trump's definition of negotiation involves a handshake, a threat, and a tweet in all caps. Segment 9, Iran talks, Chinese exit bans, and witch trials in Brazil. Iran's back at the bargaining table, maybe. France, Germany, and the UK are threatening sanctions by August if Tehran doesn't return to negotiations. Iran is dragging its feet like a teenager doing chores while Europe tries to act tough with a strongly worded email. Meanwhile, in China, Wells Fargo has banned travel after one of their Shanghai-born execs got exit banned. Yes, that's a thing. You go in, and China says, actually, you live here now. A Chinese-American man was also blocked from leaving because he didn't disclose his U.S. job. So yeah, maybe skip that Beijing layover. And in Brazil, U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio slapped visa bans on Supreme Court Judge Alexandra de Moraes and his allies for prosecuting Jair Bolsonaro, because apparently persecuting coup leaders is now a witch hunt. Somewhere, Steve Bannon is weeping into a bootleg Bible. Brazil's President Lula da Silva called U.S. interference unacceptable, which is diplomat speak for kindly buzz off Uncle Sam. Segment 10, UK's digital news and cheerleading joy. Back in the UK, people are ditching TV news for online platforms like Facebook, Google, and BBC apps. But trust still lies with traditional broadcasters, meaning people believe the BBC but get distracted by cat videos before they finish reading. Nearly 70% of Brits get news online, but accuracy, impartiality, and attention spans remain a concern. Facebook remains the most popular platform for news, even though its algorithm now recommends articles like, "Is Meghan Markle a lizard?" and "How to boil water in 97 fun steps." And in Devon, a rare bright spot, a cheerleading squad called the Sapphires is opening doors for children with additional needs. It's joyful, inclusive, and absolutely not funded by the Department of Defense, which makes it the most wholesome thing happening in any NATO country. Segment 11, closing thoughts. The world right now is an exhausting blend of drone warfare, legal warfare, meme warfare, and actual warfare. Gaza is starving, Ukraine is burning, Trump is suing Rupert Murdoch, and Japan is getting populist over rice. We're in the middle of a global reality show where the prize is survival and the only immunity challenge is staying sane. But hey, amid all that, a group of kids in wheelchairs are learning to cheer, Congo might actually have peace, and somewhere out there, someone's still trying to find the truth, or at least a decent news source that doesn't require a TikTok filter. So keep asking questions, keep paying attention, and above all, keep your pom-poms ready. Because if the world's going to fall apart, we might as well cheer it on with spirit fingers. That's it for today's Klepper's Corner. I'll see you next time, assuming we're all still here and Rupert Murdoch hasn't bought the moon.